What's up? I'm Lily Revenge Crown, brings you the stories that keep you hooked. If that sounds good, smash subscribe and let's go.
The fairy lights strung across the reception hall cast everything in a warm glow that made the moment feel surreal. My wedding day. The day I'd dreamed about since I was a little girl watching Disney movies on our old television while my sister got the new one in her room. And here it was, unfolding exactly as I'd hoped, right down to the vintage lace on my dress and the jazz quartet playing softly in the corner. Uncle Richard, my husband David's uncle, was a tall man with kind eyes and salt and pepper hair who'd been nothing but warm to me since David first introduced us 6 months ago. He held his champagne glass with the easy confidence of someone who'd never had to question whether he belonged somewhere. The BMW 8 Series, he continued, his voice carrying just enough that the people at nearby tables turned to listen. Midnight blue, wasn't it? David's parents were so excited when they ordered it. Took 3 months to get the exact specifications they wanted. My sister Lauren's face had gone completely white. The bouquet she'd been waving around all evening, making sure everyone noticed it was slightly larger than the bridesmaids' arrangements, hung limply at her side. She'd spent the cocktail hour positioning herself for photos, angling to make sure her profile was captured, talking loudly about how she'd basically planned half the wedding. My mother's rehearsed smile, the one she wore like armor at every social gathering, faltered. Her perfume, the heavy floral scent she'd worn since I was a child, seemed to intensify in the air between us. That impossible-to-breathe-through cloud that had accompanied every childhood disappointment, every time she'd explained why Lauren needed something more than I did. "What BMW?" my mother repeated, louder this time, trying to laugh. "Richard, I think you might be confused. Cars are expensive. We're a practical family." My father stood behind her, his hand gripping the back of his chair. The same chair he'd sat in during dinner, barely touching his food, commenting repeatedly about how much weddings cost these days and how lucky David's family was to have that kind of money to throw around. David squeezed my hand under the table. His thumb traced small circles on my palm, the way he always did when he knew I needed grounding. We'd talked about this moment for weeks, planned for it, prepared for every possible reaction. "I'm not confused at all," Uncle Richard said pleasantly. He pulled out his phone, scrolling for a moment before turning it toward my parents. "David sent me photos when they picked it up last week. Beautiful car. The custom interior alone was $40,000. Lauren's boyfriend Jake leaned over to look at the phone. "Holy shit," he whispered. "That's the new 8 Series? Those start at like 180 before any options." My brother Marcus appeared at my mother's elbow. He'd been hovering near the bar most of the evening, nursing the same beer, watching everything with the wary expression of someone who knew something was coming but couldn't quite figure out what. "What's going on?" he asked. "Nothing," my mother said quickly. "Richard is just joking around. You know how these things get exaggerated." "I'm not joking," Uncle Richard said. His voice remained pleasant, but something sharp entered it. "David's parents gave them a BMW 8 Series as a wedding gift. It's parked in their garage right now. Well, their new garage. In their new house." The words hung in the air. The jazz quartet finished their song, and in the silence between tracks, I heard my mother's sharp intake of breath. "New house," my father said. David's mother, Catherine, appeared beside Uncle Richard. She wore a champagne-colored dress that probably cost more than my parents' mortgage payment, and she moved through the world with the quiet grace of someone who'd never had to fight for space. "The one in Westbrook," she said warmly. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths. Beautiful oak trees in the backyard. We helped them with the down payment, but they qualified for the mortgage on their own. David's salary as a senior architect and..." She smiled at me. "Well, we all know about your position as lead systems analyst." My sister's face had gone from white to red. "Lead systems analyst," she repeated. "You work in IT. You said you work in IT. "I do work in IT," I said calmly. "Systems analysis is an IT position." "You told us you made like 50,000 a year," Marcus said. He looked genuinely confused rather than angry, which was typical Marcus. He'd never been cruel like Lauren, just oblivious, floating through life assuming whatever our parents told him was true. "I never told you what I made," I corrected. "You assumed. All of you did." My mother's mask was cracking now. I could see it in the tightness around her eyes, the way her jaw clenched. "This is your wedding day," she said, her voice strained. Can we not do this now? Do what? David's father, Robert, joined the growing circle. He was a large man, broad-shouldered, with David's same steady gaze. Celebrate? Richard was just asking about the car. Beautiful gift if I do say so myself. Catherine picked out the color. I wanted black, but she said midnight blue suited them better. $180,000 car, my father said slowly. The word seemed to hurt coming out. For a wedding gift. Well, the car was $179,800, Robert corrected cheerfully. But with the custom options Catherine wanted, yes, it came to about $180. Still less than we spent on David's sister's wedding gift, but Emma specifically asked for something practical. Lauren made a small sound. Her boyfriend's arm was around her, but he was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Your sister's gift? My mother whispered. Catherine smiled. We gave David's sister and her husband $300,000 toward a house. But she got married 5 years ago when the market was different. Emma and David preferred the car and a smaller down payment contribution. $50,000 for the house plus the car. We wanted to do more, but Emma insisted on qualifying for most of the mortgage themselves. She's very independent. The photographer, a woman named Sarah who David's family had hired, circled the growing group. I heard the soft click of her camera. She'd been doing this all evening, capturing candid moments. David had specifically requested that she pay attention to reactions, to the in-between moments that told the real story. My mother turned to me. You let us believe you were struggling. You let us think you could barely pay rent. I never said I was struggling, I said. My voice was steady. David's hand was still in mine, solid and warm. I told you I was saving money. I told you I was being careful with my finances. You heard what you wanted to hear. You wore clothes from Target, Lauren said suddenly. You drove that shitty Honda. You said you couldn't afford to come on the family trip to Florida. I wear clothes from Target because I like them, I said. I drove a Honda because it was reliable and paid off. And I didn't go to Florida because I was closing on a house and didn't want to take time off work during a major project launch. Marcus was doing math in his head. I could see it. Wait. If your salary is, and the house is, how long have you been making that kind of money? For years, I said. Since I got promoted to lead analyst. For years, my mother repeated. For years you let us think you were barely getting by. For years you never asked. I corrected. 4 years where every time we talked, you told me about Lauren's new apartment that you helped her furnish or Marcus's car payment you were covering, or how expensive it was to be parents. For years where you never once asked how I was really doing. My father's face was red now. That's not fair. We're your parents. We were trying to help your siblings get on their feet. They're 32 and 29, David said quietly. It was the first time he'd spoken since Uncle Richard started this. Emma is 27. She's been on her feet for a long time. You just never noticed. Lauren's hand went to her throat. The BMW outside, she said suddenly. The midnight blue one with the custom plates. That's yours. M4, I confirmed. David's idea. He said my name should be on something beautiful. I asked about that car during cocktail hour, Jake said to Lauren. You said it must belong to someone from his side of the family. You said your family didn't know anyone who drove cars like that. The band started a new song. Frank Sinatra's, The Way You Look Tonight. David stood, pulling me gently to my feet. Dance with me, he asked. We moved to the dance floor, leaving my family standing in their circle of confusion and Robert, Catherine, and Uncle Richard chatting pleasantly about the weather. As David pulled me close, I could see my parents over his shoulder. My mother was searching through her purse for something, her hands shaking. My father stood very still watching us dance. You okay? David murmured against my hair. Perfect, I said. And I meant it. The reception continued. David's family was large and warm and loud in the best way. His cousins pulled me into their conversations. His grandmother, a tiny woman with bright eyes and perfectly styled white hair, took my hands and told me she'd known from the moment David brought me home that I was special. His college friends made toasts that were funny without being crude. The evening flowed like champagne, golden and effervescent. My family stayed in their corner. Lauren stopped taking photos. Marcus drank more. My parents sat at their table speaking to each other in urgent whispers. Around 9 o'clock my mother approached me at the dessert table. David was across the room with his groomsmen, and she timed it perfectly, catching me alone. "We need to talk," she said. "About what?" I selected a chocolate-covered strawberry, examined it, set it on my plate. "About this house. This car. This whole." She gestured vaguely. "Situation." "What situation?" "Don't play games, Emma. You know what I mean. You've been lying to us for years." I turned to face her fully. "I haven't lied once. Not one single time. I answered every question you asked truthfully. I just stopped volunteering information when I realized you weren't actually interested in my life. You were interested in maintaining the family story where Lauren was the successful one and I was the one who needed guidance." "That's not true, Mom." I kept my voice gentle because anger would give her ammunition. "At Christmas you asked me how work was going. I said, really well, I'm leading a major infrastructure project. You said, that's nice, dear, and then spent 20 minutes telling me about Lauren's promotion to assistant manager at her marketing firm. You never asked what my project was. You never asked what I do. You never asked what I make." Her face was doing something complicated. "You should have told us. We're your family. You are. And you've made it very clear where I rank in that family. Every birthday, every holiday, every Sunday dinner. Lauren gets the attention, Marcus gets the help, and I get the lecture about being humble and not expecting too much from life. We were teaching you to be practical. You were teaching me that I didn't matter as much as they did." I took a bite of the strawberry. It was perfectly sweet. And I learned that lesson really well. I learned to build a life where I didn't need your approval or your help or your attention. I learned to find people who actually celebrated my successes instead of minimizing them. My mother's eyes filled with tears. "I'm your mother. I've always wanted what's best for you. You wanted what was easiest for you. Lauren demanded attention, so you gave it to her. Marcus couldn't manage his life, so you managed it for him. I was quiet and capable and didn't complain, so you forgot about me. That's not the same as wanting what's best for me." "Emma." She reached for my arm. I stepped back. Not dramatically, just enough. "I need to get back to my husband. It's our wedding night. We should talk about this. As a family. We're not doing that tonight. Tonight is about me and David and the family we're building together. A family that sees me. That values me. That celebrates when good things happen to me instead of trying to redistribute my success to make other people feel better." I walked away. My hands weren't shaking. My voice hadn't broken. I found David with his cousins and he wrapped an arm around my waist, pulling me into the conversation without missing a beat. At 10 o'clock we cut out early. We'd planned it that way, arranged for a car to take us to the hotel downtown where we'd spend our wedding night before flying to Italy in the morning for our honeymoon. The BMW was safely in our garage. The house was waiting for us to return. Our life, the one we'd built together, was solid and real and ours. As we walked to the car, rice raining down on us from David's cousins and friends, I saw my family still inside. Lauren was crying. Marcus was on his phone. My parents sat at their table, not touching, staring at nothing. David opened the car door for me, helped me gather my dress. As we pulled away from the venue, he took my hand. "No regrets?" he asked. I thought about the look on my mother's face. The shock in Lauren's eyes. The way my father had aged 10 years in one evening. I thought about all the years of being invisible, of having my achievements downplayed, of watching my siblings get help I never received while being told it was because they needed it more. "None," I said. "Not a single one." The city lights blurred past the windows. Tomorrow we'd fly to Rome. We'd spend 2 weeks touring Italy, staying in hotels that cost more per night than my parents spent on groceries in a month. We'd drink wine older than I was and eat at restaurants with Michelin stars and wake up tangled together in Egyptian cotton sheets. And when we came back, we'd come back to our house. Our life. The one we'd built without their help, without their approval, without their belief that I could do it. The one where I wasn't the forgotten daughter, the practical one, the one who didn't need attention. I was just Emma. And that was more than enough.